Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Ready for Anything panel. My name is Eileen Heavler. I'm the Director for Partnerships and Recruiting within the Rizzo Career Center at Loyola. And it is a joy to be joined by such a great group this afternoon. We have some Loyola colleagues with us. We also have some Loyola alumni who are going to spend time. And most importantly, we have our Greyhound students who are going to pick up a tidbit or two from this esteemed panel about what life is like after Loyola, how they chose their path, and what their path at Loyola meant to them in terms of guiding them toward their future. This is really exciting. You will see potentially the opportunity to hit yes to a recording. We appreciate your cooperation there. We're going to have some other students view this experience through the recording. So thanks for cooperating with that. For any of the students on, I think I'm seeing this, but we'd appreciate all of your names on the screen. I think I see that. Cameras are most welcome. We'd love to see you, especially during question and answers, but we understand if that's not feasible, but it's encouraged. And thanks for having your name on the screen. This event is a partnership and a collaboration within several areas throughout our campus, including career services, the Messina program, the department that handles and navigates all of our alumni engagement, and also the humanities. And so you'll see several Loyola folks on the screen representing all those departments. We are going to have a really great experience over the next 50 or 60 minutes together, and with a short exercise at the end that you can participate in, all Zoomable. Don't worry, you're not going to have to change locations or anything like that. And what I'd like to do is just remind you again that you're welcome to listen, have your cameras on, participate, and we'll ask that questions are just held till the end. It just makes it a little bit more efficient. Questions can be over the video or over your voice, or you're welcome to put them in the chat as well. And we'll remind as time goes on. So with no further ado, we have an MC for this event. His name is Reagan Warfield. Want to give a wave, Reagan, on our screen here? There's Reagan. Reagan is a fellow alum of Loyola. In fact, he's a double alum. He holds 2 degrees from Loyola. I'll let him tell you what those are. And he is also part of Loyola's faculty within the communications team. So he has a lot of experience, and I think has a lot of heart in this event because he has the experience that potentially maybe some of you are looking to acquire. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Reagan and thank everyone for being with us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Eileen, and welcome everyone. Cannot wait to hear everyone's stories. It's always comforting and enlightening to hear how people got from A to B, even if it requires going through C and D and lots of other places. So I have been part of Loyola for quite a while, starting in my freshman year right after high school, and then I went through undergrad, and then quickly after started teaching in the communications department, and then I went back for my master's in the newly formed emerging media program. And so it's been in my blood for quite a long time, but loving to hear what everybody else's journey is like and how they got to Loyola and then left. So let's start with Rory, and then we'll go through everybody else. But go through your name and major and what you're doing now in a few sentences.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Reagan. So hi everyone. I'm Rory O'Gallagher, class of 2017. When I was at Loyola, I had a psychology major and a Spanish minor. And what was the other question in between what I'm doing now? There's one I'm missing.
Oh, no, just names and majors and what you're doing now. So that's good. Okay,
got it. Yeah. And now I work as a workplace behavior researcher at GE Healthcare. So happy to answer any questions about what that actually means.
Can you say it in a sentence?
Yeah, I'd like to consider myself and my team the single source of truth for what goes on in an organization.
Okay, well said. If you have more questions about that, be thinking about those for the Q&A session later on. Phoebe, a little bit about you.
Okay, thanks, Reagan. Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe Labat, and I graduated in 2019. I majored in history, and I'm currently a history PhD student at Brown University, so I'm up in Providence. And so as a grad student, I get paid. Yes, I get paid enough to pay rent, to read books, to write papers, and to teach Brown students. In addition to teaching and research, I have held 2 departmental positions as the Graduate Student Council representative and as the co-conference chair. And I recently had a book review published, and I'm presenting a paper at Syracuse University next month.
Wow, that's very impressive. And then what's the plan beyond grad school?
Maybe to return to Loyola, become a professor.
That's fantastic. Eric, a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Reagan. Hey, everyone. Eric Baker, Loyola alum, class of 2018. I was a theology major at Loyola. After graduating from Loyola, I went straight through to law school. Went to law school at Howard University School of Law in DC. Graduated from there May 2021. Since then, I've passed the Maryland bar, become a bar attorney, and I'm working as in-house counsel at the Bulldog Group. And so the Bulldog Group, we own a number of businesses in the construction industry. The main one is Ag Direct. We're like the Uber of construction trucking. We have customers who order trucks and aggregate, and then we have truckers who, pick up work through the app. And so, doing in-house counsel work. I'll talk more about that later, but that's me. That's it.
Fantastic. And Dayana?
Yeah, thank you, Reagan. My name is Dayana. Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here. I'm a Loyola double alum. I graduated in 2020 with a degree in political science, and then I stayed on for an extra year to get my MBA. After Loyola, I joined Baltimore City Hall as their manager of business affairs. It sounds like a really fancy title, but it's not the fanciest job in the world. I deal with anything from legislation to permits to constituent service work, and really happy to be here and happy to answer all of your questions.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the introductions. For anyone who wants to think about this, go back to undergrad, remember what that was like, remember what it was like to think about the future, the overwhelming aspects to it, the exciting aspects to it, the scary aspects to it. Was there a moment when you decided on the career? How did that come about? And then we'll talk about how you would approach things differently with what you know now. But anyone who wants to start with that, let's. Eric, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with that. So it's funny. Apparently, I was really argumentative as a kid, and so parents and coaches, teachers, they all told me I would be a great lawyer since I was young. So I just sort of took that and ran with it, right? So I've always wanted to be a lawyer since a kid. In middle school, though, I wanted to be a sports agent, okay? I wanted to go to the NBA, retire, become a sports agent. Then in high school, I really wanted to be a criminal defense attorney so I could help out all of my friends. Growing up in Baltimore, kind of rough. There was a lot going on, put it like that. Then once I got to undergrad, the beginning of undergrad, first 2 years or so, I really wanted to be a civil rights attorney. I was involved in a lot of political advocacy in Baltimore and Annapolis. And, that's sort of where my heart was at. And then towards the end of undergrad, started taking more business-related courses like commercial law, legal environment of business, business essentials. And I developed an interest in practicing corporate law. So then once I got to law school, my mind was set on doing corporate law, took all the business classes they had to offer in law school. And yet now I'm doing, in-house counsel work at a tech company, at a construction company. So knew all along, that I wanted to be a lawyer, but what that looked like changed over and over and over again. And so that was sort of my journey. The one thing I would have done differently. So I remember it was my first semester of college. I had to take micro, Cura Personalis, the curriculum, you got to take a little bit of everything. I took a microeconomics class and I did horrible. And I was like, I'm never taking another business class here again. So I shied away from it for about 2 years. But then by my junior year, I started taking some more. So things started going great. But yeah, so, just because you get a bad grade in something your first semester or whatnot, don't shy away from it. Lean into that discomfort. Like, we like to say at Loyola. And yeah.
What would sophomore year you think of where you are now?
Where would I? Okay, so everybody here is sophomore, or
I'm just throwing that out there
okay.
as a
Sophomore
suggestion.
here. I mean, I always wanted to be an attorney, and so I never gave up on that dream. That's the biggest thing. You know, I stayed diligent. I stayed committed. We had a pre-law advisor, Jesse Miriam, during my time there. I think he's not there. I don't know if he's there anymore, but definitely, if you're interested in law school, interested in knowing more about the LSAT, reach out to me. I'm here as a resource. And definitely try to find that person on campus if there still is a pre-law advisor, a pre-law society there. But yeah, so I studied theology the whole time, which put a lot of pressure on myself. I knew I didn't want to do anything necessarily with that degree, but it put that pressure on me to make sure I got to law school. But you know, theology provided a lot of complex reading, yet interesting reading. I had a focus in like liberation theology, which is also very political. Shout out to Professor Castillo. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Rory, how about you? The path to your career as it is now.
Yeah, sure. I'll kick that back to starting out in high school and sort of when I first started thinking about that alongside going to college. So I think when I was sort of like a freshman, sophomore in high school, I'd actually had an interest in becoming a pilot in the Air Force. I very much was a little bit of a thrill seeker. I enjoyed playing airplane and racing video games and whatnot. But then I got to, I think, my junior year of high school and I took physics and I absolutely hated it. It was the worst class that I took that year. Did not enjoy the teacher who was teaching it. And I was like, okay, well, something else is going to have to work out for me because this is not going to be it. Luckily, at the same time that's when I took an AP psychology class in high school. And I kind of like to tell the story in sort of like three parts. There's the mentors that I had along the way who helped me figure that out. And the person that I had who taught my AP psych class, she was just incredibly inspirational and really helped me find my passion for understanding people's behavior, their thoughts, their feelings. A lot of it goes into what I do now. And that kind of set me on a path towards learning more about psychology when I got to Loyola. I wasn't, certain that when I got to school that I was totally gonna use that, but I at least had some confidence when I got there that my degree was going to be psychology and I was going to use that in some way. And then I think it was the second semester of my freshman year is when I took a social psychology class with Dr. Lepresto, who is now since recently retired as of a few years ago. And he was sort of that next person who kind of shepherded me along the way as I was trying to learn a little bit more about psych. I found that incredibly interesting, just the way that people interact, understanding how groups go through the process of forming, how they resolve conflict, all that stuff. I thought, okay, cool. Now I'm starting to specialize in some of my interests. And then the last person when I was at Loyola, I met the fall of my sophomore year when I started really seriously starting to think about my career. So I'd kind of taken the social psych class, thought I wanted to go for a PhD in social psych, but then I met Dr. Frank Golem, who is an IO psychology, IO psych PhD. He teaches psychology and research methods at Loyola still, I believe. And he was the one who kind of exposed me to that space, which is the degree that I went for my master's in. And between talking with him, learning about the stuff that he did, taking some of his courses, that was sort of one route I was thinking of pursuing. I also had an interest in student affairs from some of my involvement on campus. I kind of went that route, tried to explore that through being an RA, being involved in some programs. And I just had to weigh the two against each other and consider, okay, does either one of these seem realistic to go chasing after? And ultimately, I felt the psychology route was still something I wanted to stick with. It fit with my interest in research, with my interest in people and systems and kind of how those two work together. And it took me about a year of being outside of Loyola, working a couple of jobs that weren't exactly related to commit to going to grad school and sort of making that career transition. So it's sort of taken curves and a couple of zigzags along the way. But this is at least a first career as I see it over the course of my lifetime that I feel is a pretty good fit for me right now.
That's a great mentality. So Eric and Rory both mentioned specific professors and classes that kind of influenced them. Dayana, do you have one that has stayed with you or you keep in mind?
Yeah, for me, it's Professor Kevin Hula. I don't know if any of you have taken any of his classes before. Highly recommend. He likes to scare first years and second years, and he speaks German for like the first 5 minutes of the courses, so they believe that they're in the wrong class, but you're most likely in the right place. And he taught us not only from a textbook, but just life lessons. Something he did every day. He always showed up to class wearing a tie, and he taught us to control something and do something that motivates you every single day. You know, class has its ups and downs, life overall has its ups and downs, but if you can find something that motivates you that you can control, use that to move forward. For me, it's a family ring, and it's really funny because I sat in class, even in his own lectures, and I just played with it as he was talking. And now I'm sitting in work meetings still playing with it, and it just reminds me my family, and it really just grounds me and knows that the work that I'm doing is really difficult, but it's like beyond me, and I'm really helping individuals.
Wow, that's great. How about you, Phoebe? Is there a professor or a class that you remember?
There are so many, obviously, because I'm attached to the academics still. I guess I'm really attached to this one class I took, which was a history methods course. It was taught by Dr. Catherine Brennan, who's now retired. And she didn't do anything quirky or anything. It was just the missing link course. You know, you take these courses and you think you know what your major is, and then you take that one course that really sort of changes how you think about the world and how you think about your path. And that was that course for me, just because I learned what history was and how to do it. And so I would say that one sticks with me the most.
Are there any highlights of your career that you can actually tie back to that course?
Highlights from my career that I can tie back to this course. I guess pretty much every day when I have to teach students, you know, we get thrown into these courses where we have to TA a course, and we don't have TAs at Loyola, but at other schools, people have these things called TAs, and they're basically the professor, the representative of a professor in a classroom. And you discuss sort of the readings and the lectures, and basically you get thrown into any sort of which one. And the one thing you can go back, so like I study, for example, Native Americans, but I'm teaching a course on law, and I know nothing about law. But the one thing I can always come back to is I know what history is. And so I can always go back to sort of what kinds of questions should we be asking these texts? What's the source saying, and things like that.
That's great. Anyone else? Is there a highlight from the career that you can tie back to a lesson from Loyola or something that you learned here?
I would say my social psych class that I took my first year at Loyola, that taught me a lot about relationships with people. I don't think I ever thought very consciously about that, and I do that every day now. I mean, I think about the various responsibilities I have in work, and some of them are very technical in nature, and others are very people oriented. In particular, a skill of mine that I love practicing whenever I can is negotiation. Getting people to in a team setting or in a group setting to come to compromise in some way. I mean, it has to be done all the time to move things forward. And I learned at least a lot about that when I was taking that class, and just to think about that, as well as even my personal relationships. That definitely was a big driver of how I work with people now.
That's great. Dayana, there's a lot of pressure for students to pick a career path, to pick a major that is directly related to a career down the line. What would you say about that philosophy?
Yeah, definitely. I felt that pressure as well. And regarding that philosophy, I would say do something you really enjoy, and opportunities will come. When it comes to applying for jobs or employment, unless that specific job has a requirement, like for example, you need a certain amount of accounting credits, don't sell yourself short, like still apply. It doesn't matter if you don't have that degree, you still have experience, right? Like you're at Loyola, you're presented with so many experiences, internships, go for it. Like don't sell yourself short on that. For example, right now we have an intern who does most of our legislative work, and her background is in economics, and she doesn't know anything about politics coming into the internship prior to that, but just, you know, it's different every day, but just learning those skills and that you can transfer them over. So don't sell yourself short, you know, do something that you do enjoy. And it's really about those experiences and those stories that you can tell others.
Nice. Rory, specific career path, major, what do you think of that?
No, I think Diane actually picked an example I was thinking about when I looked at this question for the first time. It's like, there's really only a few majors, I think, at Loyola where you're getting like really specified certifications and whatnot, where you might lose some time in your life just trying to pursue that kind of career. With most anything, if you're able to find people and resources that can help you on your learning journey, you can definitely make pivots. I mean, I think about my job right now. Parts of my job involve computer programming, and that's not something I never took a computer science class when I was at Loyola. I didn't even take a computer science related class or programming class when I was in grad school. I actually taught that to myself on the side, only a little bit, and I was able to get the job I'm in now and to teach myself a lot on the job with some help from some of my teammates. And I think that like being able to find a major that allows you to practice your critical thinking skills as much as possible, and also to be where you get an opportunity to be creative and come up with new ideas, that is probably one of the most important things you can do while you're in school, because afterwards, the way the world is going, there's a lot of resources online and people you can connect with who can really help you self-learn, and that's, I think, pretty critical in learning and development these days, and trying to sort of maintain a growth mindset as you go about your life.
Yeah, you mentioned creativity and problem solving skills, and that aptitude is never going to go away. The world is going to change in so many ways over the course of your career. But if you have that foundation, which I think Loyola provides, you'll be set, and that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Internships and experiential learning. Eric, did you do any of that while you were at Loyola?
Yeah, so internships and experiential learning. At Loyola, almost my entire career there, I worked for the Center for Community Service and Justice. And to this day, a lot of those connections I made from being immersed in the community, you know, being among a ton of political figures and stuff like that, a lot of those connections I made as a part of CCSJ, I still use today and tap into today. Like, for example, next week I'm meeting with somebody that I know through CCSJ about some stuff. So yeah, try to get as involved as you can. If you don't work at CCSJ, definitely volunteer through there. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And then I mean, experiential learning. So right now I'm in the construction industry. You know, a lot of the work it's all tangible, right? So driving through town, there are, you know, certain buildings or projects I can point to and say, hey, you know, I helped work on that deal or whatnot. And so that's rewarding to me. And my interest in, you know, focusing on those kind of results in my career really stemmed from my experience at Loyola, where me and my friends spearheaded the advocacy around getting the student center renovated. And so it was under our watch that happened. And so seeing, you know, it just brings me a lot of joy knowing that, you know, you guys get to enjoy that student center that we worked years and years advocating for. And yeah, now I'm doing the same thing with my career. And so that was a lot of fun. That was a great hands-on experience. We were working with top administration at the school. We were working with architectural firms and construction companies and stuff like that, trying to get the specifics down on what the student center will look like and stuff like that. So a lot of great experience.
Phoebe, did you have any internships or anything like that?
Yeah, I actually did. So coming out of my freshman year of college, So like into the summer, I had a summer internship with a pharmaceutical company because my grandfather and my father were both in pharmaceuticals. And so it was a must that I had to follow in their footsteps. And so I had this internship, and you know what? I learned that I really didn't want to be in the pharmaceutical world at all. I didn't want to be in an office. I didn't really want to talk to people that much throughout the day. It was just it was a rewarding experience in that I actually got to meet people, and I learned how to network, and I learned how to make an LinkedIn page, and I learned all these great skills. I learned to communicate more. But at the end of the day, I really didn't want to do what I had been doing all summer. And so the next summer I went to work at another, oh yes, I worked at the dean's office too. But that was my senior year. And then, so my sophomore year, I worked at another office, and it was even worse. Just being me, who I am, I just need to use my brain a lot. And I was just plugging numbers into a computer all day and names and things like that. And so I really just didn't want to do that. But you know what, then I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to do research. And so for the next summer, I actually prepared a little bit more, and someone pointed me in the direction of this grant that the Humanities at Loyola gives to students every summer. It's this $4,000 grant to do research on any topic that you want. And so I was like, I'm going to get that for the summer, and I'm not going to work in an internship. And so sure enough, I got the grant, and I got to spend the summer going to archives and writing papers. Oh, it's now $5,000. Thanks, Peggy. Yeah, so I would say, like, just don't be afraid to make that pivot. Like, when you find something you don't like, it's okay to switch into something that you think you will like, and then to switch again, and then to switch again. I think it's totally fine. Even my sister, even now, she sort of job hops, which isn't great, but you know, you need to do what makes you happy at the end of the day. So yeah.
Learning what you don't want to do is an important lesson. It really is.
Yeah.
The best careers and the best jobs we can bring our passion to, and we can make the careers and our lives better through that passion. What are you each passionate about in your current situations? And thinking about some of the students who are listening, you know, what should they be looking for in future jobs, possibly even the specific ones you're in? Rory, let's start with you.
Yeah, things that I'm most passionate about, that's actually taken a little while to figure out in this career. So I think before, when I was trying to give my one sentence tagline on like what I do, I actually don't like that anymore. I'm going to try out a different one. So the way I can describe what I do, doing workplace behavior research, is I'm trying to do research that will make work suck less. And I'm actually stealing that line from a famous organizational psychologist named Adam Grant, who people may have come across. He did it just right, and I don't need to come up with a new one. But that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to do every single day for employees who work at a large organization that is a difficult thing to run and be a part of. And the thing that I find most rewarding is when I can communicate results and changes that are being made to people that makes them believe that the place that they're working at actually has their best intentions in mind. I really get a lot of gratification out of trying to earn people's trust, and trying to do that at scale is really what my job is about at this point. So yeah, every moment and opportunity that I get to see that in action is huge. It completely it gives me exactly the feeling I need to wake up every single day.
That's fantastic. Eric, how about you?
I'm passionate about a number of things, but one thing that I do today that ties into my passion of sustainability and, you know, taking care of the earth is that one of the arms of our company, Hartford Industrial Minerals, we're in the process, we're at the tail end of construction of a state-of-the-art, what we call a CDE plant. And essentially what that does is it takes it takes old construction, excavation, demolition materials like concrete, sand, brick, whatnot, crushes it, cleans it, magnetizes it, whatnot, and turns it into reusable, almost virgin-like material. And so we're, just trying to have a positive impact on the world and the atmosphere and stuff like that. And so there's only one other one of its kind in the US, up in New York. And so really excited about this work. We also just recently got a 10 megawatt permit on PG County to turn an old dirt waste facility into a place where we can develop solar energy. We want to turn that into a electrical vehicle charging station, hopefully for the county, if not, then for the public. But so we're doing a lot of things in the sustainability realm that I feel really good about. And being a theology major, we did a lot with the Pope's encyclical on sustainability, Laudato Si, back when I was in school. I think that came out in 2015. So sort of ties into that. Leave it at that.
That's really cool.
That is, yeah. For all of you, as we're thinking about a group of people who are looking at their journey ahead, what are you thinking about with your own journeys? And is there maybe some advice in there that everyone else could apply to their own lives? Dayana, you want to start?
Yeah, advice just looking ahead. For me, I kind of touched on it already. Like, don't sell yourself short. Like, don't let, because you don't have that specific degree or because you don't know that specific individual, knock you out from applying and going to what you want. My career hasn't been the most linear. When I started at Loyola, I was in biology. We talked about internships earlier, kind of like Phoebe. I actually interned at Sinai Hospital. My family's background is in medicine and I completely hated it. I learned I did not want to work inside a hospital. And that's when I pivoted to political science and really enjoyed it and really enjoyed my path in humanities. And so that, don't sell yourself short, but also don't be afraid to try something new. You'll never know what you like or don't like unless you actually go and try it.
Great. Phoebe?
Ooh, so what's coming ahead for me? I guess in academia, it's kind of tough because everyone's always like, oh, the job market, it's so scary. And to a certain extent, that's true. But I look at this time now as really my time to be a professional historian. And so I like to say, like, this is your time to be students. So just live in the moment, But then, of course, looking ahead, I think you should also, for me, what's coming ahead is like exams and research and archives abroad and in the United States. And then hopefully I'll get fellowships and then hopefully I'll write my dissertation and then I'll go and graduate and hopefully get a job at a place like Loyola. And to Diana's point, I think one piece of advice I would just give you guys is to just sort of do what makes you happy. I think I've said this before, but sort of do what you're passionate about. Do what makes you get out of bed early in the morning. Like I wake up at 5 a.m. and I start reading, which isn't always the best, but I get up and it's great. And so just find something that makes waking up in the morning really great for you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to explore it if you don't have the answer right now as to what that is. Rory referenced not being totally certain what he was passionate about at one point, and I think that's totally fair too. Rory, how about you? What advice would you give to your own journey ahead and that others can steal from?
Yeah, I am definitely still sort of at the beginning of this career and want to see it develop more. I think about this career and, I want to, like I said, I've started, I do some programming, some analysis, I have to do research on a regular basis, and I am trying to grow within my current career into a place where I can be helping to coordinate groups of people to work together and to help negotiate between groups of people who don't maybe have common interests, or at least see that they do. So that's sort of a guiding intention that I have for development within this career. I'm sure Eileen or Penelope could maybe correct me on some of this research, but I believe they say that we're expecting people to have anywhere between 3 and 5 careers over the course of their lifetime now. So I don't know what's going to come next. I actually kind of similar in the same space as Eric. I did do a little bit of work doing project management for corporate construction projects, and I enjoyed some parts of it. I think I could maybe even go back to that industry at a certain point, because I've also had that similar experience where you see something built out, you take a lot of pride in that. So because it's just a finished product and you're like, wow, okay, I can see really tangible impact there. Yeah, I don't really know exactly what the next career is, but I can at least see how I want this current one to develop.
That's fantastic. And there's a beauty in not knowing, and you don't have to have all the answers at any point. And figuring out what you're going to do when you grow up is a great thing, even when you're my age. So
I'm still growing up.
Yeah, same. Eric, how about you?
All right, so I'll start with advice. To reiterate what some of our other panelists have already said, fun is the most important thing when it comes to a career. Do something that you're going to have fun with as best as you can. Right now, while you're in college, work really hard, so that can become a more realistic option for you. You spend so much time at work, right? Like, I've been in school for 7 years or so, so this is my first time. These last few months, end of 2021, my first time really just working full time. And my first job right out of law school was at this bankruptcy firm. I'm not going to name it, but I was losing my mind in there. Work was really boring. I was losing my mind, and so I had to get out of there. And I was told all along in law school, you gotta go to a law firm first before you can be in-house counsel. You need like 5 years experience before you can go in-house. But I didn't listen to that. I did as much in-house work as I could while in law school through internships and stuff like that. And so I had the experience. I just needed the opportunity, and I was able to get that opportunity. And so just believe in yourself. So have fun, believe in yourself. It's more than just a mindset. It's about action, how you advocate for yourself, how you manage yourself. You have to treat yourself like you would treat your favorite celebrity. Put it like that. And I'll leave it at that.
I want to piggyback off what Eric said for 1 second, because I also had a similar experience. My first job out of school was recruiting. I was not a good fit for me at all. And what I look back on that and think is it wasn't fun, but also just as importantly, it wasn't a job that I felt was positioning me to learn every single day. And that burnt me out really fast because when you're at school, the whole environment and structure is set up to help you learn every single day. And that's, in my opinion, a pretty good feeling. The real world does not help you do that all the time. You got to work on that yourself. So find something that you enjoy, you're passionate about doing, but also find something you're passionate about learning for a long period of time. It doesn't have to be your whole life. It could be 10 to 15 years, but find stuff that you're passionate about learning.
I love this. And I love the fact that this is not the traditional advice, and it's maybe some things that you need to learn on your own, but having fun, making sure the culture is a right fit for you. Eric, that's something that I kind of heard from what you were saying. Rory, the being in a situation that excites you and that challenges you. I think that's part of what that wanting to learn is true. Dayana, Phoebe, any other non-traditional advice, like things that you learned in the moment, on the job that you didn't necessarily were prepared for, certainly with the Loyola background, but something you had to maybe learn in real time as well?
Yeah, I can answer that. It's non-traditional advice, but don't take yourself too serious every single day. Like, I have a manager title and I manage a bunch of people, but nothing is above me. I can go and do things on my own. I don't have to ask an intern to go do something just because I have that intern at disposal. Nothing is above you. Don't be afraid to do the small little tasks, and just don't, also just continue to have fun. And like Eric said, you spend so much time at work, so find those work friends as well.
That's great. Phoebe, anything to add?
Yeah, some non-traditional advice. So after school, I served in the Texas Conservation Corps down in Texas, and I had no idea what I was doing. But it was a lot of fun. But I just asked lots of questions. So if you don't know what you're doing, just ask questions. I think Loyola especially the humanities, prepares you to ask good questions. So there are some things you can figure out by yourself, but a lot of the time you need help. And so don't be afraid to ask for help, and always build your network too.
Absolutely. And curiosity, boy, that's one of the traits I look for in employees and in students. And I think it's something that if you're curious about something within the world of the career, but also beyond it, I think to have curiosity in both of those things is really, really important. Let's open it up to Q&A to all the students, whether you want to add a question in chat or if you want to raise your hand and get a question in. We would love to hear some of your thoughts. Just thinking about, oh, here we go. Any clubs or extracurriculars that helped you while you were at Loyola?
So I'll throw some out there real quick. Pre-Law Society, again, they put the link in the chat, guys. So guys and girls, go check that out. The pre-law advisors different than when I was there. So, but I also want to give a shout out to Professor Castillo in the theology department. I also want to give a big shout out to Professor Elks and Professor Astrid Schmidt-King in the Sullender School of Business. They were huge mentors of mine, helped me a lot. Reach out to them, great professors at Loyola, great people.
Anyone else? Yeah, Phoebe?
Yeah, I think that, so a piece of advice that I got from someone who's a recruiter actually was that, and I think this goes back to one of the earlier questions, was that especially about like career-oriented majors, is that if you're not in a career-oriented major like classics per se, but you want to go into investment banking, for example, then you should join the investment banking club, or you should make an investment banking club. Like Loyola has a business school, and it has lots of other schools where you can gain experience through clubs and through extracurricular activities. I myself was in the history club, and I think that if you can put yourself in a place of leadership in a club, that's also really great. So just broadening your resume with clubs and being a leader in those clubs, I think is really an excellent way to show your professionalism.
Rory, Dayana, extracurriculars?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of what Phoebe said. Just join clubs, even if you don't have that necessarily like background in it. So big shout out to the Environmental Action Club. I hope it's still there at Loyola. I joined that club, and even just through that experience, I had a leadership role, and working in my position now, I worked on some legislation that helped ban styrofoam in the city. So didn't know anything about science necessarily or anything that much about recycling, but I was in that club, had that leadership position, and it really put me in a place where I could contribute my own ideas to what the team was working on.
That's great. And Rory?
Yeah, I think about, I had done a few retreats while I was at Loyola that were really helpful. In particular, I think it was my sophomore year, there was a road trip. And then there's another one called Discovery, which was like an outdoor combination between, I'm trying to think if that's like Campus Min, Student Affairs, as well as OAC. But those were really helpful experiences. And then I helped lead on those, as well as a couple other retreats I did. So that was a great space to think and get involved. I also was in, I think, a couple psych clubs. And similar to what Phoebe was saying before, I mean, the whole getting to know people and following interests that maybe you're not taking classes or formally involved in is huge. I have gotten 2 out of my 3 jobs out of school so far from networking. And one of them, I think it was my first job out of school, which was the recruiting job. Someone found me on LinkedIn, and that was okay. That was 6 months long before I was able to network and find my way into another position. And the same thing happened when I was in grad school. I just, kept getting to know people, kept following my interest, even though there weren't any courses on the stuff that I was interested in my grad degree. And that has really helped. Been one of those things that's kind of carved my path for me a little bit.
As far as like, being involved in the Loyola community, the Loyola community is also a part of the Baltimore community. So I want to encourage you guys, don't be afraid to join organizations in the city, right? So while I was at Loyola, I was a part of Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, political advocacy, grassroots political advocacy. organization in Baltimore, and also 300 Men March, anti-violence organization that's no longer here. There's like Baltimore Ceasefire right now, things like that. So don't be afraid to support community-run organizations maybe outside of Loyola, but still in the city. And if you want more information about that, reach out to me or people at CCSJ.
And CCSJ and other great organizations. Sarah asking any classes you recommend taking besides the ones that you have already mentioned, maybe that were just fun or that you use maybe in unexpected ways in your current jobs.
I can go for that one. This was a fine arts course. Most specifically, it was taught by Dr. Pearl, who actually just retired, but it's the art of listening. And you don't realize how important it is to just sit back and listen to others. And it's an experience, but it's also something, it's a skill, right? Like you need to listen to others. And it was just really informational, but it was also a skill that I now use in my current work, but it was also a skill that I used while at my time at Loyola.
Any other class recommendations?
I'll throw two out: liberation theology, or anything Dr. Castillo teaches. Business essentials. It's really a class for like humanities majors who want to just learn the essentials, foundational stuff about business. Take that with Professor Alex, and I know she got a promotion recently, so I don't know if she's still teaching that. And then if you're interested in law, there might still be an LSAT prep class being offered. There was when I was there. Definitely take that. LSAT prep, really important. Commercial law, business, legal environment of business. Professor Runnels, I don't think he's there anymore, but he used to teach that. See if they offer that still. So yeah, those 4 classes.
Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for all of your experiences, sharing some of your thoughts, lots of things to think about and things to apply to all kinds of career situations. So thank you all for your time. We're going to turn things over to Rachel Bachman now. Rachel is going to walk us through the Odyssey exercise.
Okay, thank you to all of our panelists. That was great. So much good information that I'm hopefully just going to keep building off of here. So give me one second. Bring my screen, famous quote of the last few years. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of touch on, again, a lot of what people on the panel were just discussing, some of those career myths. I think that these things can often hold you back when you might be in that decision-making place. And so just, have confidence that success is never going to be that straight line. And you already heard from several of the panelists, they didn't love their first job, or they never thought they'd be here, and then they ended up there, and unexpected moves. So one piece of advice that I always try to instill when I'm working with students is sort of choosing your major, or, picking even that first job. You're not picking what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think that is the perception that people have, and that puts a lot of pressure. That is something that would be very hard to decide. But just know you are probably not going to do one thing for the rest of your life. We are going to have lots of different jobs, several different careers. So just kind of putting that in your mind. So really what I wanted to do today, we're not going to do the activity, but I just wanted to introduce this activity called Odyssey Planning. If you want to come to the Career Center to sort of reflect and go through what you work on, I'm happy to meet with you to kind of go over that, talk to your friends, peers. If you're in a Messina class, you guys can kind of work and share together. But basically, an Odyssey plan, the whole idea comes from this book, Designing Your Life, by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And the idea is to sort of brainstorm 3 different alternative paths for the next 5 years of your life. They suggest doing this process lots of different times throughout your life. Whenever you have kind of some major changes on the horizon, or you're moving into a different phase of your life, and one of the times they suggest doing it is when you're in college. So you will see there is a worksheet. There's 2 worksheets actually that sort of go along to facilitate this. One is a PDF that is the official worksheet of the Odyssey Plan. But that one you really kind of need to print out and write on it. So there's also a Word version if you wanted to, type your answers. But basically, it is this big brainstorming activity, a graphic representation of these 3 different options, and make sure that you aren't just including career related things, because we are trying to design our life, not just a job. So really think about what milestones might you want to achieve in the next 5 years, like what are different personal goals, bucket list items, travel, whatever it might be, relationships that you want to kind of incorporate as well. And it's going to be for 3 different plans. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a second, but basically the first plan is sort of the plan that you're already on, the route you are sort of on, even if you don't necessarily think you have a current plan. Just pick something that is on your mind, is potentially related to your career, is something somebody has maybe suggested. It's sort of the more common plan. Plan 2 is almost like a plan B. What would you do if plan A kind of didn't exist anymore and you had to make a pivot? And then the third plan is a bit more of a wild card idea. We want you to really think outside the box. What if money were no object? What if, you had every resource at your disposal? Like, what kind of would that life look like? So we're gonna hopefully listen to just a quick 2-minute video from Bill Burnett, who wrote the book that this activity is based on. And then I'll give you a couple more examples.
We just talked about how there's 6 transitions nowadays in a modern adult life. And at each of those transitions, it's good to have a
Oh, sorry. Gosh. Here we go again. Sorry.
We just talked about how there's 6 transitions nowadays in a modern adult life. And at each of those transitions, it's good to have a moment where you sort of sit back and you think, hey, what's coming next? And so we've designed this thing we call an Odyssey Plan, which is really a little bit of a misnomer because we don't believe so much in planning, but we believe a lot in having ideas, ideation. So what an Odyssey Plan is a sort of a brainstorm about how might my life work going forward, maybe 5 years or 10 years, and coming up with all the elements that would make that life rich and fulfilling. And it's important to do.
Oh. Why is it starting over? I'm sorry, hold on.
With me, my family, my friends, and my career, it's a really good way to just take a moment and sort of visualize how would my life be at this transition point. And we talked about the different transitions. So certainly when you leave college, there's a big transition. There's a transition in your 20s and 30s when you've had your first job and maybe you want to pivot or try something new. There's a transition in your 50s and 60s when you're thinking about moving to an encore career or a new career. And at each of those points, it's great to have a tool like the Odyssey Plan to figure out, hey, what might be next? It's not a specific A equals B equals C, kind of a plan. It's more of a brainstorm on how might my life unfold if these things were true. So there's an old expression, and I think it comes from Dwight Eisenhower, who was a general and then he became the president of the United States just before Kennedy. And he was famous for saying, planning is everything, but the plan is nothing. And what he meant was getting ready and planning and thinking about all the possibilities kind of gets you set up for the next stage. But there's also another military expression that no plan of battle survives first contact with the enemy. Right? So no matter whatever you planned, when you actually get into the field and you get it going, you got to be ready for anything. We reframe that in the life design class, because we aren't military, as no plan for your life survives first contact with reality. Because stuff happens, right? But having a plan sort of makes you feel like you are ready to engage. And so that's what we take from that quote.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Sorry, I'm all over the place right now, technology-wise. We already looked at all of that. There are more links to more videos in the documents that will be shared. This is just a couple little examples of what it could look like. So hopefully you're gonna, be able to either on paper or online, really get in there, have some little doodles as well as just text. Lots of different ideas, again, incorporating those life pieces and not just the career pieces. And these little other pieces at the bottom are included on the worksheet as well. They want you to give each plan a 6-word title. So this one, fulfilling expectations, becoming a corporate lawyer. So you can kind of see that is maybe what is expected of this person. You want to, the dashboard, I'm going to talk a little bit more, but that's what those gauges are at the bottom. And 3 questions that plan might raise that you need to sort of address to kind of think about that plan. So here's just, again, a few examples of what yours could sort of maybe look like, depending on if you do it on paper or if you do it on your computer. Those dashboard gauges at the bottom are looking at these 4 things. So really thinking about, do you have the resources to kind of make that plan happen? How much do you like that plan? It might just be something that you felt you needed to write down, but it might not really excite you that much. Do you have the confidence that, that could maybe be a reality? Are there parts of it that you feel more or less confident about? And is it coherent? Does it line up with your values and other pieces of your life? You can see on the bottom, that is how I wrote it out on the Word document, to sort of like make a notch on that instead of the gauge. This whole thing is based on, again, designing your life. So this idea of design thinking, where you are just reiterating, re-prototyping, retesting, redefining over and over and over again. It's a very cyclical model. It's action-oriented. You have to kind of try things out, which is also a lot of what we heard from the panel today. You don't have to wait to action until you have an exact thing that you're doing. But you want to get started. That's kind of similar to the approach that Loyola takes as well with our career model. We kind of are moving through these 4 different phases: self-discovery, exploration, preparation, and active pursuit. So just, for those of you who are still here, we're here to support you through this whole process, through this designing your life, through your exploration. Come see us. We can help you with all these different steps. Again, just since he threw in some good quotes, had to put this one. I love it. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So you don't have to have that exact step-by-step plan. Likely everything in these Odyssey plans is not going to play out exactly like that. But just sort of sitting back and hoping one day you end up somewhere is probably not going to move the needle very much. So going through this process and imagining what it would take to get to various endpoints, I think is a really valuable activity. Just quickly make sure you're following us and staying engaged with us. And that is it. You should hopefully be able to see the documents that, yes, are, oh, I'm sorry, you were saying the presenter view. I couldn't figure out how to switch it there. Yeah, so there's the documents and the directions, a link to, we watched one of the videos, but there's a whole series of videos that they do talking about the Odyssey planning. So if you're interested and you wanted to learn more, or you had questions about one particular part, there's probably another quick video about that could be helpful. So any questions about this activity? Again, please come talk to me about it or talk to peers. It kind of really helps to process it out loud. Talk to other class members, whatever. But we're here to help.
Rachel, thank you so much. That is appreciated, all of that information. And we can probably, with our registration, we can send out this information to the students as well. We'll get that out to everyone and we'll take it from there. We are at time for this event, so I'm going to wrap up with a few quick thank yous and shout outs. Reagan, Warfield, you led us so well. We appreciate that. Our alumni, we are so grateful that you are Greyhounds who chose to spend time with us this afternoon. Thank you. The Loyola colleagues who helped put this together, we are very grateful. Penelope Fleury and Rachel Bachman, Charlie Heedler, Peggy O'Neill, Mike Puma, Jeffrey Witt, all of you are so appreciated. And again, you can come to the Career Center at any time for additional advice. The Rizzo Career Center is in the Fernandez building. And with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Greyhounds. I hope you feel inspired and start to make a little bit of a plan today. And again, to our alumni, thank you so much for your time. We know that is a valuable commodity.